So last night didn't go as predicted. We've been all over LeBron for resting when healthy. Then last night he plays 39 minutes and stayed in a game where his squad was up by more than 20 for the last 17 minutes of the game. Let's be honest. This was pretty much over in the second quarter. Here's our very own Stephen A. on the King.
How he used and abused the Boston Celtics. I mean, he's LeBron James. He's the best player in the world, so we know that he's capable of such things. But when you have a player that is Avery Bradley admitting after the game that LeBron James just absolutely dominated them, that on 10 consecutive possessions he actually called the same exact play because he recognized that the Boston Celtics simply couldn't do anything about it, couldn't figure it out. It just shows you the greatness of LeBron James.
Sass working one of his many jobs so eloquently put it. Max, so the King plays well into the fourth despite the blowout in Boston. Did LeBron play too much?
Of course. I have a big problem with this. I really do. I don't understand this. Look, going into the game, big Wednesday game, we were talking about it yesterday. The one thing that dampened it a little bit was we all sort of agreed this is the Celtics game. The Cavs are playing the second of back-to-back on the road. Celtics were well rested at home. The Cavs did not have their full complement of players because of Tristan Thompson. The Celtics need this win more. The Cavs, LeBron James teams haven't always been the number one seed heading into the playoffs. Look what happened to Atlanta when Atlanta had that 61 season and the Cavs were the second seed in the East. They crushed Atlanta, swept them. Not as a big deal, a big game as it is for the Cavs as it is for the Celtics. So for the fans, it'll be a nice thing. For the Celtics, a big game, but maybe not for the Cavs. So maybe it's not the game to get so excited about. And then the Cavs wax them. They made the statement. Whatever statement they needed to make, they made it. LeBron James was too much. The way they paid attention to Isaiah Thomas defensively the Celtics were out of sorts on offense. They were dominated on the glass, and the main thing was LeBron James is too much for the Celtics, even on the second of back-to-back, even without rest, even on the road, it's too much. So the statement's been made. Now, considering he was on pace early in the season to lead the league in minutes, and he'd have been the player with the most years in the league to ever lead the league in minutes. And I was saying all along, he needs to rest more, not less, when it was a resting controversy. Why is he sitting down? He needs more rest, not less rest, because later in the season and in the playoffs, you need a fresh LeBron James. Considering all that, here's an opportunity to sit him down. I mean, even the idea, and they mentioned it on the broadcast, that they really want to send a message and the whole thing, it sends a message when your stars are on the bench in the fourth quarter. The Warriors do that all the time because you're up close to 30 points. It makes no sense. The number one nemesis for the Cavs getting out of the East is not these very good teams that they're going to have to play, at least two of the three, Toronto, Washington, or Boston. It's fatigue. LeBron goes deep into the finals every single year. He's played too many minutes this year. Here was a golden opportunity to rest him, and they blew it.
Max, we're talking about like a few minutes of rest at a point in the game where LeBron James wasn't having to expend a ton of injury. And we saw a couple of weeks ago with the Clippers that you can't just cancel it in and sit your starters on the bench and not expect teams to continue playing and maybe come back. This was a big game. This was a statement game. And LeBron can give us that, that in public, nonchalant, well, I've been to 6 straight finals, you know what I'm saying? This whatever. Last person to ask about a regular season game. We saw in the second quarter, that's not it. That's not the way he played this game when he was big boy and Marcus Smart under the goal, when Avery Bradley couldn't hold him. We saw LeBron really wanted to play this game. And even J.R. Smith said, hey, this was important. We wanted to make a statement. We took it seriously. That guy, LeBron, took it seriously. And Tyronn Lue, for as much as he tries to rest LeBron, when he does sit him on the bench or when he has a DNP, he understood they wanted to send a statement. And we thought that it might be the Celtics games, and people were talking about it was a prime opportunity for them. LeBron's still the best player in the world. The Cavs are still the class of the East, even without Tristan Thompson playing. Now that J.R. Smith is now hitting buckets. Armand Shumpert is playing better on offense, especially from the three-point. And that when those two guys play and they score offensively, now you're able to keep them out there defensively, which we saw last night. And you don't have to pull LeBron early to send a message that we stumped y'all out and now we don't need him on the court. And you think that if LeBron wants to come off, he can't just look to the sideline and say, hey, coach, he doesn't have a helmet, but tap his hairline and be like, hey, I'm ready to get out the game. He can do that. They sent the message. They did what they had to do. And when they want to rest him, they just won't put him out there at all.
Ryan, Tom Haberstroh has a piece out very recently about the relative effects of rest and wear and tear that the games have on pro basketball players and pro football players. And do you know what doctors in Santa Barbara found? Doctors in Santa Barbara found that the NBA has more of a wear and tear on your ligaments and muscles and stuff like that because there's no rest.
Well,
I mean, I've seen
retired NBA players walk. I agree with that.
Yeah, right. Right, exactly.
I agree with that.
And they're playing. Everyone who talks about the schedule, it's too many games, etc. What does everyone point to? Hey, if we can eliminate the second of back-to-back on the road, let's have the number of games that gives us that, whether it's 75 or 70 games, whatever it is, let's do that because that's the real issue. That's when you should rest players. I understand not resting them this game, right? I get that, and I get sending a message. But come the fourth quarter, forget about the fourth quarter. Anytime Ty Lue can find rest for LeBron James, he should take it. At any time he can find it. And here was a golden opportunity to grab it, and they blew it. And if the Cavs don't get out of the East, and I think they will, everyone thinks they will get out of the East, but if they don't, it will be from fatigue. It will be because LeBron James played too many minutes this year because we see what he can do at full strength. There's nobody that can stop him in the East. If they don't, it will be, not just because of this, it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts, but because of all the moments when they didn't rest him. It adds up.
Max,
they need to take it when they can get it.
I thought you would have loved this. We saw playoff LeBron reminding everyone why he's king, what he's going to be doing over the next month. With Russell Westbrook being your favorite player, we finally got to see this LeBron, and you're mad about it?
Well, right, because that's what we do for a living. We have to look for
we
things
gotta
to get
nitpick
angry
at
about.
something.
Yeah, exactly. But no, Westbrook and LeBron are different things. LeBron is a special case. The reason that no one's done more than a three-peat since Bill Russell is because of fatigue. Because it's not just, well, that's the life cycle of great teams, because teams have stayed together. The nucleus of teams have stayed together. But when the postseason in the NBA is a whole extra season.
Yeah, and because baseball called Michael Jordan away for a year and a half.
Well, okay, that's right. He might have done 8, but maybe he was fatigued after those 3 mentally, physically. It's an extra 2-month season against the best teams in the world, and that can wear people down, just even in terms of the minutes played. LeBron is going to be in his 7th
I loved it too.
straight.
And the other part that's crazy, we just mentioned Russell, we mentioned Jordan. LeBron has already played more career minutes than both of those guys. And I think when you put it into context, that's a lot of time spent on the hardwood.
No question. So you heard the guys talking about the Kings' long minutes in last night's blowout win, but what do you think? Did LeBron play too much last night? Go on Twitter now and vote. A little NFL to get into now, though. The streets are talking, and apparently it's legit. The rich might just get richer, folks. The Patriots want Sherm, and guess what? Seattle, they're open to it.
What you've seen lately in the news is real. That's on both sides. It's just open communication. He knows what's going on. We know what's going on. I don't know if anything would ever happen. This isn't a secret, like this just came out of nowhere. This is, people find things out, and we're not going to lie to each other, and, we're not going to BS each other. It's going to be all laid out. But like I tell people all the time, we're 98% of the deals that we're involved with, we don't follow through with. But at least we've opened that door, gone down the road, and seen what's behind, door A or door B.
Cards face up in Seattle. So Richard Sherman responding to MMQB saying there's very little chance it happens, but both sides are listening. Ryan, what does this say about Sherman, and what does this say about the Seahawks?
Well, it says the Seahawks and this tight brotherhood that we've kind of known them to be, and the things that they have portrayed it to be may be a little different in-house than we are seeing on the outside. Obviously, you see the huge blow-up between Sherman and defensive coordinator Richard during the season. Doug Baldwin comes out a little bit earlier this year, and he's talking about how Rich is sometimes too smart for his own good and how it can be a distraction to the team. And now you hear John Snyder kind of pillow talking about some of the things that go on within the organization and about the trade rumors dealing with Richard Sherman. And to me, it's not necessarily, hey, we're open for business for Richard Sherman. Please come in and tell me exactly what you're willing to give me. It's if this deal doesn't go through, which 98%, from what he said, of the deals they talk about don't go through. Hey, Rich, you're put on notice. Hey, the rest of the Seattle Seahawks, you're put on notice. Nobody is above reproach. Anybody can get it. And in this organization, in this team, we want things to be done a certain way. Pete Carroll wants things to happen a certain way. And if Richard Sherman isn't doing those things, if he's saying things that are quote unquote causing a distraction, they want to let people know they will not be about those things, that the Seattle Seahawks will not allow those things to go on. I think what's even more interesting to me is that Rich says, hey, both sides are listening. This is a man, and this is part of the LOB, the Legion of Boom, that have consistently and constantly pledged their allegiance to not only the 12th man in Seattle, but to each other. And for him to say both sides are listening, and I understand it's a business, it kind of lets you know that there's some tension there and some things going on in Seattle that we don't necessarily know about. Because what I can tell you, that even though he just turned 29, it's not about play, Max and Molly. It's not about can he follow the best receiver on another team, because he's done that the last year and a half. He's played inside in the slot against guys like Julio Jones, against guys like Dez Bryant 2 years ago in 2015, Antonio Brown. So he's shown that he still has the worth at that position. So when a big time player that makes this type of money comes up on the market, it always seems a little fishy to me.
Okay, first thing that it tells me is, well, hey, Ryan, who's the most important player in the Legion of Boom? Number one guy.
Earl Thomas.
Earl Thomas. That's what it tells you, right? I mean, it's Richard Sherman that's expendable, not Earl Thomas. When Earl Thomas goes down to injury, everything falls apart. He's the guy. But Richard Sherman is a huge piece of it, too. So when you talk about, is this about production or personality, I think it's pretty clearly personality. And I'll tell you why. If it's just production, on the one hand, I get it. You can say, look, he just turned 29 years old, just now. He's a 29-year-old expensive corner. Okay, trade him a year too early instead of a year too late. But look who the interested party is on the other end. Reportedly, the Patriots are interested. Now think about that for a second. The Patriots are interested in a 29-year-old expensive corner who will not be a free agent, unrestricted free agent, until 2019. Meaning they have 2 years of control, meaning the Patriots want to pay him not only this upcoming season, but also the season after that. Not only are they willing to expend those, if it's true that they're really interested, are they willing to sink those kind of resources into Richard Sherman, in terms of dollars and commitment over time. But they're also willing to part with, you would think, draft picks to get him. And what would they be willing to part with? You'd think it would take a first rounder, at least a second rounder. Patriots don't have a first or second rounder this year. They'd have to trade next year's first round pick for Richard Sherman. So if the Patriots, the best team there is looking at Richard Sherman and saying, yes, we are willing to devote resources, both in terms of money and draft picks, going forward into this guy, that tells you he is still very productive, and the brightest lights in the NBA believe he will be very productive going forward at least a couple of years. It ain't about production with Richard Sherman. It must be about personality. Eventually, maybe something is wearing thin here, and they don't like it anymore. And Ryan, I would suggest this, though, also. Sometimes, which will seem to contradict what I just said, but I'm just going to throw it out there. Sometimes, even the best franchises make bad personnel decisions. And maybe this would be one of those cases where Seattle thinks that, look, his personality's not worth the production anymore. The production's going down and the personality is getting worse. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying maybe they perceive it that way. It's possible that they perceive it that way. But let's not forget, this is the same franchise. As many good moves as they made, they looked at Max Unger, they looked at Jimmy Graham, they said, we'd rather have that guy than this guy, traded him, and the offensive line has been a problem since then.
Yeah, you know
so,
what?
like, maybe they're just making a mistake.
And you make those kind of mistakes. The Matt Unger, Jimmy Graham mistake is one where you felt like, okay, we want to build this team around Russell Wilson offensively. We need to give him another option on the outside. But you don't get rid of Richard Sherman playing the way he has. And yeah, Deshaun Shedd was okay. Jeremy Lane was okay. The reason that Richard Sherman had to start doing some of the things he is now is because you didn't have other pieces. And so to me, that leans more towards personality, like you were saying. But he's been this dude. And yes, as we get older, as we get more comfortable, as our bank accounts get bigger, we start to be more unapologetically us. It happens to us all. We learn how to just be us at all times, and sometimes that wears thin. But not enough from what I've seen with his production to make this kind of move unless it's a serious problem. So for me going forward, I'm very interested to see what they would ask for, what they would take, and where this goes. And if he goes to the Patriots, I'm letting you know now, it's the last day I will work for ESPN because I'm tired of this. And I can't take it no more.
It's not even fair.
And if they get another good player, I'm done. And I'm sick of
Especially
it.
in that defensive backfield.
We're getting into that more later. We need to address that if
What
this
if they
happens.
keep Butler and Gilmore and add Richard Sherman?
It's just not
Last
fair.
day, bro.
We'll discuss that a little later. And unless Seattle thinks that what they could get is potentially greater than what they have in Sherman, we'll see with that.